Good morning, everyone. We still have a lot more people to join, but we'll get started now. I welcome everyone to this session. Thanks for joining so early on a Saturday morning. But yeah, today's session is going to be about a full stack developer development course. Our speaker is Rafat Munshi. Rafat has about 9 years experience in the software industry and 6 years as a full stack developer and an instructor. She is currently working as a full stack developer and an instructor for Aligarh Muslim University. She also has worked as an independent consultant for a lot of the projects with many companies and institutions. Rafat is also the creator and instructor of the Skilling's full stack development course. Our full stack development course is one of the most comprehensive full stack courses available in the market. So today and tomorrow, Rafat will give you a sneak peek into the course and give you a hands-on experience on the first couple of modules of the course. And I hope all of you find this session really useful. And we are very lucky to have Rafat over here, who has done the major part of designing this course to give you a demo of it. So without further delay, I will hand it over to you, Rafat.
Hey, thanks a lot. So I just wanted to add something about myself as well. Uh, I did my BTech back in 2012, and I did it from electronics background. So I was not essentially from IT or computer science background, but I was very interested in, all these full stack development technologies and all. So I just learned on the side while doing my BTech, and I landed a campus placement in Cisco Systems Bangalore as an IT engineer. So I developed business applications for them. So I want to say to everybody is that, even if whatever your background is, if you're not from a traditional computer science background, if you're from any other background, electronics, electrical, mechanical, civil, any background, or if you are experienced, but your experience is not really into full stack development, that's absolutely fine, because once you learn these technologies and once you do practical projects, it's absolutely possible and very easy to get entry into the field, and the field has exponential growth. It has a lot of scope right now, and yeah, that's what we all really pursue in this particular master's program, which we are going to talk about. But yeah, today's boot camp is going to give you a very high level understanding of um, front end technologies. So let's first begin with interacting with participants a little bit. I just want to know if anybody has any idea about what is full stack development. If you do have, please raise your hands, um, unmute yourself, speak. Does anybody have any understanding about full stack development? Okay, so we have chats over here. It's basically a combination of front end and back end. Yes, right. So full stack essentially means front end, back end, database, deployment, all of this. Entirely owning the entire, website or web application. That is full stack, all the stacks, front end, back end, database. Okay. So now what is front end? Can somebody write on the chat, what is front end? HTML, CSS, yes, that's the technology we use in front end for designing the front end. What else? And JavaScript, yes. Okay, so I want to show you something. Sharing the web page of the master certification program which we have, and essentially what you see on this web page, whatever you're looking, whatever you look at the browser, you know for any particular website, whether you go on Amazon, Facebook, any website you go on, whatever you see, that is the front end. Okay, all the code which is running behind, That is the backend, and whatever data your website is having, it is processing, it is showing to you where the data is stored. That is database. Okay. So front end is something which the user sees. Back end is the programming which you do, which the user does not see. And database is, the part of the full stack which stores data of your entire web application. So this is just, a high level understanding of what is full stack. In this bootcamp, what we are going to do is we are going to essentially only understand the front end part of it. Now, this master's program is made of 6 different courses. The first course is Introduction to Front End Technologies. In fact, it is the complete front end technologies course. And today we are going to look into, some fundamentals of front end development. And I'm going to go through high level understanding of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. We are going to build something. So please get your laptops and everything ready. We're going to, install certain applications and then, write code and run it. So be prepared to do some hands-on in this particular bootcamp as well. So I will start sharing the PPT right now. All right. So let's begin. The first thing which I want to do is set up some expectations for today. So today is day one. We have 2 hours for learning HTML and CSS. So today, what we are going to do is first we are going to understand essentially, what are web applications and why do we need web applications or to study these things in the first place. Then we will see, what is the role of these front-end technologies, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, which we are going to study. Also, you would want to know, how it is like working as a web developer. Then we are going to set up your local environment and we'll get going with creating your HTML page, styling your HTML page using CSS, and we would even look into a popular library of CSS, which is Bootstrap, and that would really make the entire process pretty easy. So let's begin now. If you have any question, you can just put it up on chat. I might look into it in between and reply to you, or we will take all of the questions, at the end. Okay, so first of all, what are web applications and why do we even have to learn building web applications? So now, as you know, that how businesses in this world go ahead and grow. Okay, if you have any business, you would want your business to grow. Now, every business wants their processes to be very, very fast. So if there is a business which is totally offline, let's say, for example, you own a library. Earlier, everything would be using a register, pen, paper, all those kind of things. Now you want to take everything online. You want a library management system. Everything becomes fast. Everything becomes transparent. That's where you would need a web application to be built. Or your entire business might be fully online. For example, you might be owning an e-commerce website. So obviously, your entire e-commerce is fully online. Let's say you own a pizza shop, and initially the pizza shop delivered pizza to customers in that particular locality, and then you expanded it to cater to the entire city, and you would give a phone number, people would call up your pizza shop and you would deliver it. Okay, now you want to expand your business in multiple cities, and you want uh, a system which would understand which customer is calling from where, which is the nearest outlet, and from where you could deliver that to them. You need a totally online system for that, and you really need to build a web application for them. And examples like Domino's, Pizza Hut, which are into this kind of a business, right? So essentially, evolving business challenges require technology solutions, if business grows, and you have to build that technology solution as a full stack developer, because a full stack developer comes up with a suggestion, uses the right tool, uses the right technologies, codes the application for them, tests the application, gives a working product to the customer, and maintains the product to handle high scale of high demand of people accessing the application. And that's all of that which we study in the master's program. Today we are going to see how we could create the front end of a custom web application. Okay, if you create a custom web application for any particular business, that would automate a lot of business processes. It would give a higher return on investment to the business owner. For example, there are so many web applications around us, right? We use social media, we use e-commerce websites, we use delivery services websites like Swiggy or Zomato. We use financial online services. We use entertainment sites like Make My Trip. We use travel booking. Sorry, that is an example of travel booking website. Entertainment site would be Book My Show, right? We use communication services like Zoom. We use healthcare services like 1MG, Healthify Me, so on and so forth, right? So many web applications around us, so much of demand. That is why we really need to understand how to create web applications. Okay. If you have any questions regarding web applications, full stack development in general, that is also something which you can ask. Now, let's look at how this entire, internet works. And how whenever you are, accessing any particular website, how that thing works. So essentially, let's look at this. You have this internet backbone. Okay. Now, what is internet backbone? Let me show you something. Can you see something over here? I just selected the first option, but what you see is essentially, all these wires on your screen. Can you see the screen? I'm not sure if you're able to see.
Yes, Rafat, we are able to see it clearly.
Okay, okay, yeah. So essentially, there are so many wires, optical wires going underneath the ocean, connecting between continents, and they're huge, in quantity and obviously in length. Uh, these provide us that sub millisecond delay in internet, speeds. So this is the internet backbone of the entire world. This is where all of your data of the entire www World Wide Web transfers. So if you request something from India, maybe the website is hosted on a server, let's say in the US. So it would the data would get transferred through this internet backbone all the way to the place wherever you are. Yeah. So I was talking about this internet backbone. So this internet backbone is connected with other smaller networks, and each of the networks might have modems which would route the information to the specific computers. So there are so many computers and servers connected to each of these modems. Now let's say you have your computer which has any specific IP address. This is just a number which is going to identify your connection, and this is the IP address of your computer. Now from here you are wanting to hit a website, let's say google.com. Okay, you searched google.com on your browser. So now this modem is actually going to take your request and see whether this request is secure or not. So there's a firewall in between, and then it's going to go through your internet service provider, and your internet service provider is actually going to look up on the DNS server what is the IP address of google.com, because google.com is just a name, right? You need a proper address for that. And this address, this IP address is just like this particular road in this particular area in this particular city in this particular country. So let's say 64 is the, yeah, you can assume that 64 is like the country code, and then 233 is the city code, and 171 is that area code, and 1 is that exact house or exact street where you want to go. Anyways, so this is going to be the DNS server which is going to give you the correct IP of google.com, and then that IP is given to the router, and now router has to understand where I'm supposed to route this particular information, and the router is going to, take your information to the correct path. Just like, if you ask any person on the road, what is this address? Where is this address? The person would say, go straight, right, and left. And that's what the router does for you. It routes the request in the correct path and reaches the Google server wherever it is. So this is essentially what happens when you just try to search anything on the internet. Now, whatever is present on the server, that is a web application. Okay. And now we want to understand what is the architecture of that web application. So we already discussed front end, back end, and database, right? So front end is something which the user sees. It can be built using technologies like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. You also have very good libraries and frameworks of JavaScript like Angular or React. You could also use a library of CSS like Bootstrap to build your front end. Then on the database side where your entire database resides, there you have something like Postgres or MongoDB or MySQL working for you. There are HTTP requests going to the database, and the response comes back to the front end to the user. And something which is lying in between, which is known as the middleware, which is the backend, is coded using any language like Java or Python or PHP or JavaScript. And then you have, API service providers, which are providing services either for front end or back end or the database. And this could be something like if you're building Uber and you want to use maps, okay? You want to use maps to show the user where they are and, where the car is and, those kind of things. And so instead of building maps from scratch, if you're an Uber engineer, why not take the API, use the Google Maps API, and then use that in your application, and that would be a much better way of doing that. So those are the API service providers. You can also provide your own API, and that's something which we also see in this master's program which we do. Now, what is the role of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript in all of this? First, obviously, we understood that it is used to create front end. But now within front end, when we create an entire web page using front end, where does HTML, CSS, and JavaScript come into picture? Now, if you want to create the structure of the web page, that's where you would use HTML, and the version which we use is HTML5, which is the latest version. Imagine that to be something like a home you are building, and you want to build the structure of the home. All the bricks and mortar which you want to use, the walls, all of that can be built using HTML5. Now, once the structure is built, once all the walls and rooms are built, then you want to paint them. You want to do some interior decoration of them. All that decoration, all that styling is going to be done using CSS3. Okay. Now, once your home is well, made and it looks good, all of that, but what if the home doesn't function well? You want electricity in your home, right? You want drainage system. You want doors to function, windows to function, right? The way they are supposed to function. So how to add that behavior in your website? That is going to happen using JavaScript. Okay. And remember, all of these have to be done very well, because your website only has a few seconds for the customer to put a good impression on them. Okay, so you're supposed to make sure that you use HTML, CSS, and JavaScript properly, code it properly, so that your website loads very quickly and it's very pretty to see. Now, as a web developer, let's say you learned HTML, you learned CSS, you learned JavaScript, you built projects by your own self, you built websites. So what would be the typical tasks which you as a web developer would do, in the industry? So first of all, you really need to understand how to deal with the client, or understand the requirements of the client, whatever comes to you. So you would gather the requirements. That's the first thing. You would gather the requirement, you would do documentation. How to do documentation, all of that also is something which we teach in the program. once you understand the requirements, you document them, then you have to specify the design. What is going to be, let's say if you're doing front end development, you need to specify how the UI is going to look, and what each button would do, what each form input requires, what would be the behavior of the user, what would be the output of your website if the user interacts with your website in certain manner. All of that is going to be defined in the specifications, technological specifications which you do. And then once that is defined, then you start coding, you start building your web pages, right? So as a front end developer, you will be given mock-ups in any job which you do in the industry. You would be given mock-ups which are designed by designers, and you're supposed to code that using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And that's exactly something which we do in our program. You are supposed to code that using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript on any library which you want to use. And then you're supposed to test it. You're supposed to test whether your page works exactly the way it is expected, whether your page looks good on laptops, on a mobile phone, on a tablet, on a bigger screen desktop. Your website should look good on any screen size. And that's something which we call responsive web design or responsive web development. Okay. Now remember responsive web development, because I'm going to ask you later on, and you should remember what is the meaning of responsive web development. It is essentially creating your website for different screen sizes, cross platform, cross browser. So on all browsers, it should look good. On all devices, it should look good. So once you do your unit testing, then let's say you build one or two pages, and now you want to integrate into your entire website, then that would be called integration testing. So you integrate that in the entire website, and you see everything works properly just the way it is expected, and that's going to be a integration testing. And then you would deploy the item and maintain it. You would hand it over to your customer, you would maintain it for your customer, and that is going to be your entire flow as a web developer. um, as a full stack developer, again, you would not only do the front end, but you would also work on the back end. You would work on the database, and you would take the entire ownership of the entire product. And with this kind of a skill, not only you can get a job, but you can also do freelancing. You can also build your own products. You can also start your own startup, those kind of things. So this is really very important for you to learn and understand. Now, once, let's say you have your own website and you want to host your website. So what you would do, the first thing you would do is buy a domain. You could buy a domain from anywhere like GoDaddy, or any providers, and you can even buy hosting space from them. Once you buy the hosting space, they would give you a dashboard, a panel to work on. You can upload your website over there, and associate it with the domain, and then access it using that domain. Or you could use a very simple thing like GitHub pages. So what you could do is, whatever HTML, CSS, JavaScript pages you have created, just upload the code on GitHub, and then use GitHub pages to demonstrate your website to different users. That is also something which you can do, and that is something which we will try to do by the end of this program. Whatever you have built, you can show it on GitHub, and we will see how you can set up GitHub pages, etc. Or you could just upload your website to any service platform like AWS or Google Cloud Platform, and from there also you can hit the domain and access the website. So many possibilities. You just have to choose one method of hosting your website. Now let's begin with setting up your local environment. Okay. So now the first thing which I want to do is, let me just share. Okay, so I think you can see my Chrome, right? Uh, Chrome browser. Can somebody
Yes, we can
confirm
see.
if you can see? Yeah. All right.
Yes, Shrifat, we can see
Okay.
the.
Thanks a lot. So now what I want you to do is, first of all, if your system does not have Google Chrome, then the first thing which I want to do you to do is install Google Chrome. So go to any browser, whichever you have, Firefox, Microsoft Edge, or Safari. And if you do not have Google Chrome, just type in the bar, install Google Chrome. And then you would be taken up to their website. which is going to be simply support.google.com, and then you're supposed to install it from there. So please install Google Chrome on your system, because this is going to be the browser which we are going to use for all the debugging purposes, all the analytics purposes, all kinds of programming purposes of front end development, because it really gives us very good developer tools, and that's something which we are going to use throughout these 4 hours of boot camp. Okay, so if you have not you do not have Google Chrome installed, please install it now. The second thing which I want you to install is Visual Studio Code. So again, go to just Google Visual Studio Code. You will find the relevant link absolutely at the first place. Just go to that link and you will be seeing code.visualstudio.com/download. And whatever your operating system is, please download the Visual Studio Code for your operating system. So if it's Windows above 7, you can just download it using the system installer. That's going to be the easiest. Just download the system installer, click on the installer, go next, and it is done. If you are on Linux, again, download your executable and execute it the way you would execute any other application. Same thing on Mac, please download the zip file and install it. Once you're done with installing Visual Studio Code, that is when we will start understanding how you would code. So let me just go through my PPT while your installation is happening. Okay, so Visual Studio Code is the kind of editor which we want to use in this particular bootcamp. But there are other options, just in case you do not want to use Visual Studio Code at all. Then you could also go to some places like CodePen or CodePly or JSFiddle or JSBin. These are different websites which give you essentially the same service in which you can write your HTML, CSS, or JavaScript, and then work on the front end part of it. So for example, I would go to CodePen. So codepen.io, and you can log in, sign up, etc. You can create your own pen over here. So let me just log in. And now over here, as you can see, I hope you're able to see my screen, right? CodePen.io.
Yes, we are able to see it.
Okay. Yeah. So as you can see here, you can type your HTML. On this place, you can type your CSS, and here you can type your JavaScript. And once you are done typing some code over here, then you'll be able to see the output over here. So for example, in HTML, if I simply write hello world, and you don't have to refresh or anything, it is going to give you the output over here as soon as you write it. So you can add your styling over here, and you can add your JavaScript over here, and here as well, you'll be able to see your output. So this is something which is also possible. Similar to CodePen is CodePly or JSFiddle or JSBin. Choose your option. But for me, I would simply go and work on Visual Studio Code, because I want to show you how to use a proper editor to do coding and to check on your browser. Okay. Okay, so let me first open Visual Studio Code. Okay, you can see my Visual Studio Code, right? This is the editor, Visual Studio Code, which is going to help you a lot in your coding of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. If you haven't yet installed, please install it. Once it is installed, you will be able to see on your left side, actually, this this kind of an explorer, and you'll be able to see all these options. If you see here, you'll be able to see an extensions option. Now, I really want you to install certain extensions. For example, you can install this Beautify extension, which I have already installed in my system. Please just type Beautify over here, and you will be able to see this Beautify option. Please install that extension. Another extension which I want you to install is this another one, which is JSCSS HTML formatter. This is another extension which is going to help you format your files. And the last extension, which is a very important extension, is HTML boilerplate. Just type HTML boilerplate. You'll be able to see something like this. Please install that, because that's going to really help you kickstart your pages without really writing a lot of code. Okay. Once you have installed these extensions, or even if you have not, that's fine. But it's my suggestion that you do install these extensions. Okay. Mac users extensions are on the right side menu on the bottom. Okay. Now, once you have this, then you can create using the file option, new file, and then you'll be able to save your file. Before that, if you want, you can open a particular folder. So I have this bootcamp folder open for me, and over here also you can create a new file, and then you can simply write my first .html. This is going to be your first HTML file, and here is something which you are going to write. Now, I wanted to show you how this HTML boilerplate looks like. So if you type HTML, and as soon as you type HTML, you will be able to see this boilerplate option over here. Or even without that, even if you click on HTML :5, and that's going to give you some sort of a code. Now, you might have gotten confused if you have seen it for the first time. What is all this? Let me just explain. Okay. Or why not we start writing it by our own selves, so that we understand. So the first thing which you need to write in an HTML program is a simple HTML tag. Okay. Now this simple HTML tag is just going to tell that this is an HTML page. Okay. And everything within it is supposed to be rendered on the screen. Whatever we write within this HTML tag is going to look on the screen. Okay. So a tag is between these two angle brackets. So make sure you have your file with an extension of HTML. So if you just did a new file and you have to save it somewhere, then Control S, and then you write the name of the file, and make sure that when where you have the save as type, make sure to choose HTML. Okay, this is how you would save your file in your folder. Now, once you have this HTML file, then you will start writing tags within these angle brackets. So the first tag which we wrote is HTML tag. Within the HTML tag, we can add two tags. One is head, and every time we add a tag, make sure to end that tag. How do you end that tag? You again start with an angle bracket, and then you have a slash. When you have a slash, your VS Code automatically helps you to end the relevant open markup, and that's what is HTML all about, right? It's a hypertext markup language. Okay, so we have all these markups. We have HTML, we have head, which is a markup, and now I want to mark the body. Okay, so again, body tag, end it. It's automatically ended by Visual Studio Code. Now within head, you can give the title to your page. Okay, so if you see over here, this particular web page, okay, this has a title of submarine cable map. Okay, so this is the title which we want to give to our page. So let's say in your head you have put this title, end it, and then type the name of your page. Here you could simply write my first web page. Okay, this is going to be your title, and as soon as I pressed Control+S, it just automatically made the formatting correct for me, and that's just the beauty of the extensions which we have installed. but that's okay. You can format it your own self, or you can use online formatters. For example, you can go to, you can just type HTML beautifier, okay, and you'll find so many free formatters. And what you are supposed to do is simply, copy your HTML code. Like I have, just copied the small HTML code over here, and then I'll click on format HTML, and it's going to format this HTML for me and give me a pretty code which I can simply copy back in my editor. So this is also one possibility which you can use. So once you define, your title of your page, you might want to write something in your body as well, right? So here, let me just write a simple hello world, because as coders, where does our world begin? It starts with hello world, right? So this is going to be my first HTML page. I'll try to execute that. Okay, so can you see? I do have my first .html, which is displaying hello world for me, and the title over here you can see is my first web page. So can I have a yes or a no from you if you have gotten your first HTML page working for you, which shows hello world and which shows the correct title for your web page. Okay, so you are having that setup and the entire coding going on, right? So I hope you are pretty excited. Now let's start building our web page. But before that, let's discuss, what all we can write in an HTML page, right? So basically, I actually, went to my folder, opened that my first .html. So that page got opened over here, and you can see hello world on the HTML page, and over here you can see this title, my first web page. Okay. So I wanted to know if you are able to see the title of your web page and hello world in your body or not. If you yourself coded it and you're able to see, this um, this new page which you created, give me a yes on the chat box. If you are stuck somewhere, just type no, and hopefully somebody would be able to help you in the chat. Okay, I really want you all to start coding your own self, okay? So I assume that you do have this first web page created with a hello world body and your title. Um, and let's look at, some of the things which we can add. Okay, so you already saw a new web page using Visual Studio Code. Now, let's try to understand the structure of this web page, okay? You had your head, and under head you had, your sorry, you had your HTML, and under the HTML you had your head and you had body. Within the head you would have title, and you may have some meta tags just to give information to the browser about your web page. And within body you can add so many different tags like H1. H1 tag is going to give a heading in your web page, which you might want to show to the user, or you may want to add a paragraph with some content in your web page. How to run the code in Visual Studio Code? You just simply have to save your file as whatever name .html, and then go to that folder and open your HTML file in a browser. You will be able to see the output. Okay. So if you're able to see that way, just type a yes. If you still have any issues, how to create a project folder for the first time in Visual Studio Code, I just shared that. So here in the Visual Studio Code, you can see an explorer on the right, on the left. In this explorer, you will be able to create a new folder, or you can go to file and then open folder, and you will be able to open a folder in of your whatever folder you have created in your operating system. Let's say on Windows you have created a folder on desktop. Open that folder and then start creating a new file, save it. using .html, you know, extension, and then open the folder, open the file. That file should open in your browser, okay? Or if it doesn't open in your browser, just right click, open in any browser, preferably Google Chrome, okay? Okay, so let's go back to our PPT. So now look at this first HTML code. You have your HTML. Now before HTML, essentially if you use a boilerplate code, that would really help you. Otherwise you would have to remember to type. This doc type HTML is going to give an indication to the browser that this is HTML5 code. And then you have your HTML, head and body. Within the head, we already wrote title. We could also add some meta tags. That is also something which you will easily get using boilerplate code. And within body, you could create an H1 and a paragraph. So let's try to do that now. I'm just removing everything and showing to you how you can simply use the boilerplate code. This is the boilerplate code which you can get using the extension which I suggested. And here we already have the doc type HTML. We have head and we have body. Within head, we already have these meta tags, and that's good. In title, I really want my my first web page, and within body, let's create a heading. This heading would be an H1 tag, and this is a heading. And now I want to add some content. This is my website content. Just add this H1 and paragraph in your web page and see what output you get. And tell me what output you get in the chat box. Yes, metadata means data of data. So whatever data we have in this web page, within the body, whatever we have. So the information regarding that, we are wanting to specify to the browser. Okay. Please write this code and execute it and see what you get as an output. So now, as you can see, this is the output which I get. So we have a heading and we have your content as a paragraph. Now, I want to show you how you can use your Google Chrome browser to do changes in your website and see those changes before you actually do the changes in code. So what you do is, if you have your Google Chrome browser open, do a right click and do an inspect. So you do a right click and you clicked on inspect. That inspect would open various tabs for you. So for example, you have this elements tag. In elements tag, you will be able to see your entire HTML code which you have written. So you have, this HTML, and then within HTML, you have this head. And if you can see my screen, let me try to zoom in. Yeah. So if you can see over here within my elements, you have these arrows by which you can, either open or collapse these tags. And now within body, we have this heading and paragraph. Now, you note that whenever I am hovering over your the particular tag, that is getting highlighted in the browser. So if you have a very complex web page, like something like this, the master's program web page, if I just do an inspect, and within elements, you will be able to see so much of code which is written in for this particular web page, and you will be able to see all the different elements, which one is which, and you will be able to make any changes which you require. So come to your page. In your page, if this is the heading and this is your content, okay. Now let's say you want to add a line after your heading, okay. So instead of you want to see how it would look. So what you can do is you can right click and you can type edit as HTML. And after this, let me just add an HR tag. This is the horizontal rule tag, which is just going to add a line for me over here. Okay. If I add a line over here and I feel that, oh yeah, it looks good, not bad. Okay. So then I can simply go back and, add the relevant code in my page, because this is just a test which we have done over here. If I refresh this page, then that thing is gone. Okay. Now, this is something, this is a hack which you can, use in any web page around. So if you go to Wikipedia and then, you can simply right click, do an inspect and change the HTML over there to put your name under the name of, President of the US or something. And then, take a screenshot and share it with your friends. That's also possible. But this is a very good tool for debugging. And here you have console. This console is something which we are going to use a lot tomorrow. And then you have these different tabs to do different types of debugging. Within sources, you will be able to see that your HTML page is coming from a particular folder, and that is a resource which you have of your website. Okay, so let's go back to our PPT. So this was the first HTML code which you just wrote. Now, whatever model is being created using the structure which you are building using HTML, that is known as document object model. So each of these are objects within your web page. Okay, so your head is an object, and then within it the title is an object, and then within body the h1 is an object. So this is a document object model which is getting created. Now each of these tags also have attributes, so you can add attributes. For example, for paragraph or your header, you can add the id attribute. Okay, so that you simply are able to identify that particular element in your entire object model. So paragraph with id, contact information. So if I want to, let's say, change style or add anything to contact information later on using CSS or JavaScript, I can use this ID. So various attributes in HTML tags. Now, how are you going to remember so many tags? How are you going to remember so many attributes? It's a very simple thing. You simply have to go to documentation. So if you can see my Google Chrome, and let's just type HTML MDN. MDN is the documentation for your entire front end, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, all of that. You will get it using MDN, developer.mozilla.org. This is the official documentation of all these technologies. So whatever you need to know about HTML, its tags, what are the various attributes in HTML, all of that you can find on developer.mozilla.org. But in this particular session, what I would do is I would give you a lot of tools to use, a lot of tools and tips and tricks to use, so that you are able to quickly go ahead and use all the internet technologies, all the resources on the internet to create your own web page. And even if you do not remember specific tags, specific syntax, you can easily go back to the documentation, check that, come back to your code editor, type that, and execute and have the web page, the kind of web page you want. Okay. So we saw the anatomy of this HTML tag. So we have our element. We have the start tag and we have the end tag for each of the HTML tags. Only few tags do not have the ending tags, and that's something which I'm going to share with you. For example, the horizontal rule tag, which I just used to create a line on the web page, that does not have any ending tag. So I just put a slash at the end. So in the start tag, we can add, different attributes like ID, class, and we're going to discuss, why we need all of these. And then between these tags, we have our content. So I just wrote my content or my first paragraph, whatever, that is going to be the content of my paragraph tag. Okay. So now let's look at some of the common, HTML tags. We already saw HTML, head, title, body. We saw H1. We could also have different headings. So H1 is like the main heading, and then you have H2, and then you have H3. So it goes smaller and smaller. And this is extremely important because in your web page, your H1 should always denote the topic of your web page. and H2s would denote the subtopics, and H3 should denote the subtopics. These kind of things. Why? Because search engine optimization, SEO, takes into account your content in different headings to be able to understand what your web page talks about. Okay, so don't use header, just don't use header tags just to highlight content on your web page. Use header judiciously. Otherwise, you can use font size, properties, etc. For different things in your web page. Okay, so now you already saw paragraph tag. Within paragraph or within your HTML page, if you have to add new lines, you can use the line break, and you can use a pre tag if you want to exactly show how your how your content should look like. So let's go back to our Visual Studio Code and let's type some more content. So this is a lot of content. In fact, if you want to add content in your web page, you should know that there is a very good thing, which is essentially, you can use for adding content, lorem ipsum generator. You can simply go to that, loremipsum.com, and then you can simply, copy this content and then paste it on your web page. This is just, sample content, which generally websites do have. We don't need that. What we can do is we can simply copy this text and paste it many times. Now, if I save this, and then if I reload my web page, now you can see there's a lot of content over here. Now, what if I want to add a line break? I can simply, put a line break, let's say over here, and I would type BR and put an ending because BR does not have an end tag. And if I go back and reload this, as you can see a new line has been put over here. So this is the use of line break. Or if I want to actually, show something exactly the way I write it, I could use the pre tag. So I would write P, pre, and N pre. And within this, I would simply write, I want to show this code, and a next line. Yeah. So, and I want to just write, some JavaScript code, function F, and then console.log, so and so. But I really want that this indentation should be proper. So for this, I have added the pre tag, and now you can see that because of that, as I write, it is being shown. If I did not have this pre tag, then what would happen? Then you would see that all my new lines and spaces would have gone by HTML, because HTML completely removes all your extra spaces, all your extra new lines. So these were the basic tags which you should know. Now let's try to create something more exciting. Now remember that in HTML, we have two types of tags. Okay, we have an inline level inline element, and we have a block level element. Okay, so what is a block level element? A block level element will take your entire web page space. Okay, from the right to the left, entire space the block level element will take. Okay, just like the floors in this building, right? So one floor will take the entire space of that particular level of the building, right? What's an inline element? Inline element is the one which is not going to take the entire space. It is just going to take that much of space which it requires. So if people are sitting on a bench, each person takes that much of space only which they require, right? And all the remaining space is free for other people. So that is an inline element. So for example, div in HTML is a block element, but span is an inline element. So let me show that to you. Okay, so let me create a new div over here. And it would be really great, if you can type along with me. So you can also create a new div and write, this is a div. Okay. And now after this, I'm going to create a span element and I'm going to write, this is span. Okay. And then I'm going to just add another span element. So this is first span and this is second span. And then this is going to be the first div, and then I'm going to add a second div just after that, and this is going to be the second div. Okay, and as usual, I'm going to reload this. Now you can see this is first div has come on a new line, this is second div has come on a new line, this is first span and this is second span. Both of them have come in the same line. And why is that so? This is because div is block element and span is an inline element. So every time you need anything which should take an entire block, you should put it inside your div. Okay. So for example, let's go back to our skilling course. Now this program web page is here. Now this entire menu bar, I wanted to take this entire space, right? So I would create it using div. Okay. But let's say I want to just, make this front end developer part bold. Okay. So I won't actually create a div for this front end developer, text, right? Because then it would come into a new line and it is just going to create a new block for me. What I just need to do is maybe add the span tag over here and then add all the bold and every styling which I require in this part. So that's how, we have these um, um, two different types of elements. Now let's look at how we can let one web page interact with another web page. Okay, so let's say on your web page you want to give some contact information. Okay, and you want to show your website. So a very exciting thing which you can do after you are done with your bootstrap, after this particular boot camp, is that you should create your personal website or your personal portfolio website. And in that, what you can do is you can put your image, you can put your photo, you can put your name as a H1, right? That's going to be the heading of your page. And then you can write something about yourself in multiple paragraphs. And then at the end, you can give contact information in terms of social profiles. Let's say you want people to go to your LinkedIn to find you and probably message you over there or contact you for any new job opportunities, something of that sort. So you would write your name and then put your href tag, put your LinkedIn profile link in the href attribute. So you can see the anchor tag over here. Anchor is essentially helping you to interact between web pages. So have you ever looked at any website which is like just a single page? I know there are single page applications, but those also have different divisions, right? So you definitely want to interact with in multiple pages. Or if you have a very complex website, something like Skillink or Amazon or Facebook, you definitely need links to go from one place to another, right? So you will have to add this anchor tag like this. You have to open the angle bracket, write href, which is going to give the reference of that particular link, and then you can add your link over there, and then end the anchor tag, and add the content, whatever we have in this for this particular link. So let's do that. Let's go to our Visual Studio Code and then let's type a href and then end a, and then I'm going to write your name, and before that let me write contact me. I'm going to refresh this page. And now, as you can see, because we had this span element, the next thing came inline. It did not go down. If we want it to go down, we should wrap it up in div or add a paragraph tag, because paragraph tag is also a block element. So here you have a link. Now it doesn't do anything because I've not added any link over there. Let me just put this particular link of Skilling. So I'll put this link of skilllink.com, go back, refresh my page. And then if I click on this, you will see that Skilllink comes up. In fact, not only another website, you can even put link to another web page. Okay. So for example, I have this web page html.html. So what I'll do is simply instead of all of this, I would write html.html and reload this. And when I click this, I will have my another HTML page come up, which just has, the hello. And you can see that this hello, when I'm hovering over this hello, I can see a hi popping up, right? Why? Because in my HTML page, what I did is I just created a hello anchor, but with a title of hi. If we add this title, then it becomes easier for a screen reader to tell to the user. So there are people who are visually impaired, right, who also want to use your website. So that screen reader, which is helping them, they will be able to tell to the user that, this link is actually going to so and so place. Okay. So this is something which you can do using HTML. Now let's go ahead and try to understand that it's not just that you're adding links. You also have the option of adding the links for uh, for opening in a new window or opening in the current window. So self is going to open it in the current window, blank is opening in a new window, parent will open in the parent window if you're using frames, and similarly you can put all these options in the target attribute and check for yourself. So for your anchor tag, you will simply add a target, oops, not here, beyond your inverted quotes, target, and then over here you would write, let's say, blank. Okay. And now if I go back and I press on this, as you can see, my new window opened up. Let me close all the other windows. My new window had opened up. Okay. Again, if I click, another new window would open up. So these are the ways you can use attributes. And how would you know all of this? That's the point, right? You do a boot camp, you understand things, but what about the remaining stuff? You want to have the knowledge of remaining stuff, right? Again, go to your MDN documentation of HTML and then check, what you can do using anchor tag over there. Going ahead, I wanted to share you how we could create lists and add images. So let's try to create an ordered list over here. So for ordered list, I'm going to have OL and it's going to give me different options. So let's say I'm going to use A, B, and C. And now in this, I'm just going to add li tag, which is going to add list for me. And now here, I can add, some information. So for example, my favorite course, and then I can create a new li tag. And here I want to not only write the information. Just give me a second. Let me just yeah, I was testing properly. Okay, yeah, okay. So here I don't want to just write text. I want to add an image. How do we add an image? To add an image in your web page, you would start it with an img tag, and then you're going to add the source of the image. Okay, and how would you add that? Using the src. So using src, you've added the image, and now you're going to you don't need to end your img tag. You can just put a slash over here, and here in your src you're supposed to add the link of that image. So let's say you want to pick up any image from Google, or let's say we pick up any image from here. So to get any image, what you just need to do in any web page, just right click. You can go to inspect and check, what's going to be, what is the link of that image, or you can even, just Google anything about the image. So if I just type Skilling and go to images, as you can see, I can find so many images, right? So I can simply copy link address. Oh, I can open the image in a new tab. Let's go to Outlook. Right click, open image in new tab. This is where I find this image, and I'll just put this image over here. Okay, and I'll just save this. Let me go back to my first page, refresh, and now you can see that the image has come up over here, right? So you can add the image, and now along with image, always remember you can add a height of the image and a width of the image. As you can see, this image was looking too big for me, so I just want to make it smaller. So I would just put height equal to 200 px. Px is pixels, okay? Pixels, screen pixels, you know it, right? Okay. So height and width, and I can also add another attribute of alt. And over here, I really want to explain this image because again, people who are visually impaired, the screen reader would read out to them what this image is about. I would want to, just mention, let's say founders, and then refresh it. The image has become skewed, so you can simply go and increase the width a bit over here. And this is how you can change the width and height of the image, have the alt tag working for you. And now I can also create not only an ordered list, but an unordered list. So unordered list would be something which is like not ABC or 1 2 3, it's going to be bullets. So an unordered list, if I do UL and then I write type, here I get, different options of, let's say, disk. And then within this, I can create a new list. And in this, I can write first, and I'll simply write second just to show it to you how it works. Yeah, so you can see this first and second over here, right? Now, you understood how to create lists, you understood how to add links, you understood how to add images in your web page, how to change the height and width of the image. Let's see. Now, I really want to, I really feel that, this content is not looking properly on my screen. I want to actually, put it within something like a table. Okay. So how do we create table in HTML? To create table in HTML, you need to use the table tag and then end the table tag. And within each table, what you would do is you would create a new row in the table. Okay. So you would create a new row in the table, and that's going to be using tr. Now, each row would have different cells, right? So there's a row, and then there are these different cells. Okay. So what are these different cells? These can be created using td tag. Okay. So you have table, then you have table row, then you have table data. Okay. So this is going to be your first cell. And then let's say you want to add another cell within the same row. So just copy and then type second cell. Okay. And let's say I want to create a new row. So I would again write tr, and within this again I would write td, and I would write second row, first cell. Okay. And let's just save this and see how it looks. So yeah, you see that there is something which has come up, but second row, first cell, that's it. Let me just add some borders. So here, let's introduce CSS for you. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add style tag, and I'm going to add border to my table. Okay, so here there are so many options which VS Code is giving to you. I can just use border and how much, let's say I want to add 1 pixel solid black border. Okay. And I refresh this, you can see I do have, 1 pixel solid black border over here. I could also add it to multiple, to each of the cells. That is also something which is possible. Okay. So this is just a small instance of CSS which I have shown to you just to familiarize you with this. Let me add, in fact, within, these TDs, let me add the data which I had. So all of this H1 and span, all of this goes in the first table, first cell, and then your contact me would come in the next one. And then your unordered list is going to come in the first cell of the second row, and your unordered list is going to come in the second cell of your second row. What I want to show is that your HTML code is can be nested one within the other. So you have an entire table. So in first cell, you can add your different HTML code, whether it is images, whether it is lists, whether it is links, whether it is a new table. Everything can be nested within each other. Now, when I refresh this, as you can see now, everything has come within a particular layout, and within, it looks kind of organized. This is something which you can also do using div tags. You can add div tags, and you can do styling such that, your content is visible properly. Now, let me give you an idea. Why don't you create, this border, a table, and then, put login, and then a text box. So how are you going to add text box? Now that's the next question. How do we add text box? So let's say I add multiple line breaks over here. So I added multiple line breaks, and now I want to write login. And I want the user to give the login username, let's say username and password. Okay. Now, how would the user enter the username? Okay. For that, we use forms in HTML. Let's go back to our PPT. We saw lists, we saw images. If you want to really use circular images, you can use style equal to border radius 100%. I use the style attribute in the table tag, but you can use the style attribute in any HTML tag and put the relevant style which you want to add. So there I wanted to add a border. Here you also want to add a border, radius to the image. Okay, so you add a border radius and then colon, and then whatever value which you want. So if you want 100% border radius, then you'll add that, or you can go to something like cropcircle.imageonline.co, which will also take image from you, and it is going to crop it in a circular fashion and help and give it back to you. Let's say you have your web page, your own portfolio web page. You want to put your image, but you want to put a circular image. Okay, so you can use this particular hack which I'm sharing with you. Okay. Also, we could definitely remember to put width and height of the image so that your page does not become jumpy. Okay, because sometimes some people's network is very slow, right? So the images take time to load. So if the images take a lot of time to load, they would flicker the page, and it would not be a very good user experience for them. Okay, so you can also use the picture tag just like over here, and for different types of screens. So let's say you want to create a website for a big screen which would have a very big banner image, but for a small screen you don't want that banner image, you just want a smaller image. So just note this picture tag. Again, if you want to more information, definitely go to documentation. This is in itself complete. You can simply copy paste from this slide to your Visual Studio Code, put your relevant image, and you can understand that if the minimum width of the screen is 650 pixels, then give that image. If the minimum width is 465 pixels, then give another image. Okay, so and for all the other cases, give some other image. So that is also a good possibility using HTML, which you can use for your web page. We also saw how we could create tables in your web page. Now let's look at forms, how we can add forms in your web page. So if you want to take login information, you need, first of all, you need a form, right? So I'm going to add a form tag. And within the form tag, I'm going to add login. And then I really want to take the username. So I'm going to put this username part over here. And here I'm going to take an input from the user, simple tag input. Now there are so many types of inputs which you can provide the user with. So let's say you want username, you would use the input type as text. If you want password, you want input type as password. Why? Because you don't want the password to be visible, right? The password should come like star, 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 etc. You want to enter date, input type is date. You want to enter email, input type is email. You want to enter color, input type is a color. You want to enter range, input type is range. You have so many input types. The exhaustive list of input types where you can get, can somebody put it on chat? I told it so many times. Where can you get exhaustive list of different attributes, different values for different attributes of your HTML code? If you want to just look it up on the internet, where you can get that? Can somebody write on the chat? Where can you get a comprehensive list of reference of HTML? Yes, MDN, Mozilla documentation, that is where you will get. So I'll just put input type equal to text over here. And for password, I would simply write input type equal to password. That's it. So I'll refresh it, and now you can see that there is a login username, password, and some input text input is coming up. So I'm able to type into this, and here password, whatever I type, it is actually not really visible to the user. But yes, this is going to be the password field. And this is going to be the field which even the browser is going to understand. So let's say if I submitted, so the browser is going to ask the user, right? Do you want to store the password in, in the browser for later use? So that's why, the password field is really important that you mention it to be password. Okay. Now, if you really want to, create a particular button, so then you would create a new button, or here you would simply use a input type equal to submit, which is going to be a submit button. So I'm going to create input type equal to submit, and that's going to be a simple submit button. But let's say I want to have another button. So button, I would write value equal to reset. This is just going to, let's say, reset it. Reset information. Okay. So this is another possibility. If you want to, let's say, if you want to get the user register. So I'm just writing register, and let's say you want to ask the gender. Okay. So for gender, there could be a male or a female, right? So I'm going to write input type equal to checkbox. And I'm going to just copy paste it for male and female. Okay. Now, as you can see, I also have, this male or female checkbox available for us. We could also add a value over here. So let me just get it in a new line. We could add a value. So the value for this would be male, and for the value for this would be female. Similarly, you could have a radio button. So let me just show you. If instead of checkbox, I did a radio. So as you can see here also, this kind of an input is available from HTML for you to use. Okay. Now, let me show you what we can do using field set. And okay, let me show you, in fact, this time that that you have to use field set to show something, but you don't remember the syntax of field set. Okay, then what would you do? You would go to Google and you would type field set in HTML MDN. Yeah, and then you get this page, which is going to give you a proper example of how you could use field set and legend over here. So now you understood that within the form tag, you need to have a field set, and then you need to have a legend, and then all the inputs. You can simply copy from here and paste over here. And in the legend, I just want to put, let's say, login. And yeah, I want to end field set. And as you can see, Visual Studio Code really helped me end the field set. Let me go back to my page. And now as you can see that all of this has come in a very nice format. Okay. Now, I really want you to focus on this login screen. I don't want to see the information above that. So we can add comments in HTML. So that can be added using this exclamation mark, hyphen, hyphen. This is a comment. And comment is essentially just to understand the code that, this part is, working on this, other part is working on that, etc. So this is just a comment. And you can also, if you want to hide some code from executing, you can add a comment over here and end the comment where you want to end your code which you want to hide. So when I refresh, now all of that is hidden. You just have this login available over here. So this was the use of field set and legend. Okay, you could input color, number, password, text. You saw how you could have a submit button. You could input even the file, so you could just have a choose file option, and then user can choose file. You can input date. We saw radio buttons, we saw checkboxes. Let's also see select. Okay, now again, you want to use select of HTML to select certain items, but you don't remember the syntax. Again, go back to your MDN documentation, or just simply write select in HTML, and yeah, you have this. So now you can see that you can have these kind of select options using this. So you just have select name, and you can add the ID, and then you can put different options as well. Okay. Now, this is something which you can type over here. So I'm just going to write select, and I'm going to add options, option equal to, yeah, so instead of putting this information as radio buttons, so in Visual Studio, what I can do is, I can just put my cursor in the beginning of the line and click control plus slash in, Windows at least. And that's where, it is going to totally comment out this particular line of code. Okay. So here, I have, commented this out, and now here I'm going to put different options. So, oops, sorry. Yeah, so this is going to be the option of male, and this is going to be the option of female. Okay, the female can be before that. I mean, there's no issue in that. And also, we need to pass in the value, because how is the server going to understand which option the user has selected, right? We have to pass in the value. So I'm going to pass in the value of male and the value of female over here. And this is also another way in which you can take information from the user. So I'll just refresh this now. And you can see here, I do have the select option over here. Okay. And obviously, you can see how in various ways you can have the select working. So we have different values, different options over here, and different attributes. So you can add a label for before and use the select, and so many attributes within the select tag. Just go and read up, because this boot camp is very limited, and we do a lot of practice, we do a lot of examples in our course. That's like more than 24 hours of duration, but this is only 4 hours, so that's why we have limited time. But I'm giving you a lot of tools which you can definitely use and create your own web page, just the way you want. Create your own portfolio page, create a login and registration page. That is going to be a good exercise for you. Okay, let's go ahead. So now, why are there so many types? There are so many types to give user the correct experience which we want to give, right? Sometimes we want to pass on information to the form, but we don't want to show to the user. For that, we have input type equal to hidden. We have input type equal to image for the user to provide an image. Input type equal to email is going to check from HTML side. You don't have to add any validations. From HTML5, you have this kind of a validation that whether the user has put a valid email or not with the @ sign and everything. So that is the great thing about HTML5. Okay. Now HTML5 also comes with semantic tags. Okay. So this is one of the very important interview questions. Okay. In the course, we also deal with teaching you a lot of interview questions. Okay. So one of the very important interview questions is, what is the difference between semantic tags and non-semantic tags? So semantic tags are header, section, and site. Something which is going to lay out your page, and non-semantic tags are all these tags which we have seen till now. So all these are semantic tags. You can include a header, you can include a footer tag, you can include section tag, a site tag, and within section you can have article tag. You saw Skillink navbar, which I told you, the entire menu which is there. That is, that can be within the nav tag as well. So these are all the different tags of HTML. Now, you've seen one way in which I have added CSS. Now, let me ask one thing. If anybody knows, what is the full form of CSS? Can somebody put on the chat, what is the full form of CSS? What is the full form of CSS? Does anybody know what is the full form of CSS? Yeah, cascading style sheets. Great, great. Many of you know it. Cascading style sheets. It's basically used to add styling in your web page. Okay. So you already seen that in HTML tags, I put a style tag. Sorry, a style attribute, style equal to inverted commas something. That is inline styling. Okay. For every tag, I want to add that particular styling. Okay, so that is an inline styling. Now imagine you create a huge HTML page. I'll just show you. Look at this HTML page of Skillink, and you can press Ctrl+U on your home, on your web page, and you will be able to see the code of anybody's web page. You can even see any script which they have written or any styling which they have added within the style tags. Okay, so this is a good way of checking how they have built the structure of their web page. Okay, so now you can see there are like thousands and thousands of lines of code. Okay, now imagine all these thousands and thousands of lines of code. In each and every element you want to add styling. So div class, div so and so, style equal to some big styling. Okay, and then h5 style equal to lot of styling. Okay, font color, font size, font family, so many things you can add. If you keep adding inline styling, it's going to make your web page horrible, the code horrible to maintain. We'd never go for inline styling. Okay, as good programmers. Okay, one of the things which I really like about Skillink courses is that these are created with individuals who are more than 5 years of experience at least within the industry, right? So we know the important things of which is relevant to the industry. We know how to build good software. Okay, and that's something which we teach in all the courses, all the tips and tricks, all the best practices within the industry. That is something which you will get to learn if you do consider this course. Yeah, so if you really want to create a good piece of front end code, then you cannot add inline styling. Then what to do? Another way to add styling is to have internal styling. Okay, internal meaning within this web page. So I have this my first.html. Within this I have my internal styling. Okay, so it's going to start with your style tag, and remember, this has to be within your head tag. It can be within the body, but the best practice is to add it within the head tag so that the styles are present before your content loads on your web page. Okay, so now within this I can add some information. Now what information? Let's say I want to add styling for the entire web page. So for the entire web page I can simply use star and then curly braces, and here I can add, let's say, background color. Okay, and let's say I want to add a background color of this. Okay, and let me go back to my web page. Here is my web page. So now, as you can see, the background color of the entire page became bisque suddenly, right? That is because of the CSS styling which I have added. This is internal CSS. Okay. Now, over here, I really want to now do a lot of things, because now suddenly I realize that I can do so many things using CSS. I want to change, let's say, the text color of everything which is there on my page. So what I can do is I can go to color. Sorry, first I have to select everything, right? So what do I want to select? So I want that everything in my table. Okay, so I'm adding this tag of table. Okay, yeah. So within my table, I want that the color of my text should be, let's say, brown. Okay. Now, when I refresh, I'm not sure if you can see that. Okay, it's too difficult to understand. Okay, there's no table over here. Okay, so let me put for the form. So for the form, okay, now you can see that everything has turned to brown. Login, username, password, register, everything has turned to brown just because I put, the value of color to be brown for everything in the form. So now you can see again, if I try to inspect, this login is actually within legend. It is not within form, right? But legend is within field set and field set is within form, right? So whatever is under form, you can put that. But no, you don't want, this login to be brown. You want the login to be, let's say, black or any other color. So for that, you will not use this thing. You would use, let's say, you want to put the color for legend. Okay, so now here if I put black and remember a semicolon at the end, go back, refresh, and now you can see it has turned to black. Okay, and the reason for that is now this is working on the element of legend and not specifically for everything in the form. Okay, so this is one way in which you can use tags, HTML tags, to put styling. Another way is to use classes in HTML. So for example, over here, uh, let me put a span tag over here. And this is a good use of the span tag. If I want to add specific style for a particular word or anything, I can put the span tag, span, and then I would put class equal to user and end the span over here. Now for this user, I want to do some good stuff. Okay, so I want to add styling for this user. Okay, so I'm going to write user with a dot in beginning, in the beginning. Okay, the dot is going to say that this is a class. Okay, a class of user is going to have this kind of a styling. Now, I want to change, let's say, font. Let's say, the font size. Okay, I want to make it 20 pixels. Okay, and now let me go back and refresh this. Now you can see username is like pretty big, right? And I like it. I like that the username is looking big. In fact, I want to change that same font size of password and even the register words as well. So the good thing of using classes is that I don't have to write this. I don't have to copy paste the entire styling for the username, the password, the register, and for everything. No, I don't. I can simply reuse this class name. Okay. So what I did was I put a class equal to user. So I can simply copy and put a class equal to user in front of password as well. Okay. So since we do not have this um, span tag. So I'll just put this span tag after password and then input, and then I should be putting a line break over here just to make it look proper. Okay, so once I do this and I refresh, I have this username password. But if you do not have username password, you can even register yourself. Just to add a little bit of space, I would add a new line. Okay, so now I added a new line over here, but this is just a hack. It's just a hack of adding a new line. I want this register to be properly, positioned below. Okay, and for that, we really need to put this entire register stuff within a div tag, and within this, I'm going to put this register code and even this select, because this select is going to select the gender. And now we have, this register within this div. And now using this div and, this block, I can add a lot of styling to position it in various ways. So let's go back to our PPT now. Now look at this. What did I do? I used the CSS. First of all, I used the selector. The selector can be any tag. It can be any class. It can also be ID. So let me show you with an ID. Okay. So for example, here I can again, add a span, and I would put an ID to be, let's say, register. Okay. And then I'm ending this span. Now, if I want to add a styling to that particular element, I can use the hash sign and register, which is the name of the ID. And then here I can write, font size to be, let's say 250 pixels, but also I want to add a different kind of font family. And, you have these different families which are available for you to use. And I want to add the font weight to be, bold. And there are so many options. You can simply go back to the MDN documentation and look at what are the various font options, what are the various sizing options. That is all something which you can check on the documentation. So now you can see that it seems that I really, really, really want the user to register himself or herself. That's why I've put this, this kind of styling over here. But you get what my point is, right? You do get what I wanted to share. Now that was a mistake. 250 pixels was a mistake. I meant 25 actually. But yeah. So yeah, this is the way you can use ID attribute as well to add styling to your web page. So use your selector. You can use class. You can use ID. You can use tag. You can use multiple. Okay, you can use multiple. So in fact, why don't I give you a proper link for that? Okay, and the link is amazing CSS selector MDN. Go to CSS selectors. So you have this universal selector, which we already saw star. We also saw star class selector. We saw an ID selector, and you can also have an attribute selector. So let's say let's say we use ahref, right? So whoever's href is so and so, Then I want to put the styling so in another in some fashion. Let's say I put img src, right? So whichever images src is so and so, or beginning with so and so, or ending with so and so, or has so and so. So all these different options you have. One is where it begins, one is where it ends, and you can definitely go to attribute selector and check all of these options that a href here it is ending, it should end to with org. So I for that I want to put font style equal to italics, and all these different options you have. Now you can also group selectors. Okay, so for example, here I have grouped h1, h2 and p to do a text align center. If you want the entire text to come to the center, you can do text align center, and you can, let's say, you want to put the text color to be red. You can group these multiple attributes h1, h2, p. So these are all tags attributes, but you can also group classes. You can put h1 comma dot next comma hash register. All of this is possible. Let's look at here. You have so many combinations, descendant. So form, within that there is field set, and then within field set there is legend, right? So you want to have that descendant combinator, that li which is within the ul, which is within the form, which is within the div. So I want that specific element only to be styled. Okay, I want that specific element only to be styled. For that, I would use these kind of very specific selectors, descendant selectors, child combinator, sibling, adjacent sibling, column, and I could also use pseudo class, something like if I have a link and if I want the link to be hovered over, and when it is clicked, it should have a different kind of a color. If it gets hovered over, it should have a different kind of a color. We use pseudo classes. You can see that if the button is hovered over, then the color should change of the button. Okay, for that we use a pseudo class which is hover. We do a lot of practice of these things within the course, so definitely make sure to check that out. So yeah, definitely I'm putting this link on the chat because I really feel that this is a very important link for you to understand css selectors. Okay, let's go ahead. Now let's look at the box model. But before that, I want to show the last thing, which is external CSS, how we could add external CSS. So what I'll do is I'll create a new file, and to create a new file in Visual Studio Code, it's pretty simple. Press Control N, save. I would save it, let's say style, and I want to add CSS. Okay, I'll put CSS and I'll save. And now I want to add all of the styling from here. So I'll cut the styling from here and paste it over here. Save and save. When I go back to my web page and I refresh, all of my styling is gone. Now, how do I get this styling? To get this styling, instead of the style tag, I have to use link href, and then I would add my styling. Okay. In fact, even in the boilerplate code, let me remove all of this. And if I just type HTML and I use this boilerplate, you can see that here already I have this part mentioned. So I'm just going to copy and paste it over here. So link rel equal to style sheet. href is what? Style dot css, because that's something which we want to use. So if I included the style.css and if I try to refresh my page now it has all the styling which I want. So correctly my style.css is getting linked. Remember that if you put your CSS within a CSS folder, you would have to put something like CSS slash style.css. So make sure that your relative marking, a relative file path is correct. So I just put a comment over here, relative file path. Okay, that relative file path definitely should be correct. Only then it would work. Otherwise, it would not work. Okay, so I'll refresh. Okay, so it should not have a slash over here. So now this works. Okay, so that's about external CSS. And can somebody help me? Which is the best method? Inline CSS, internal CSS, or external CSS? As per software design, what do you think is going to be the best way of adding CSS? External CSS, exactly. So you guys already know it, right? So you know that external CSS is the best way to add CSS. You have an external CSS file. Everything about CSS is in that file. Only what you're doing is you're including that. What's the other benefit of using external CSS? You have one CSS file and you can simply import it into multiple HTML files. Now your website will not have one HTML page only, right? It may have multiple HTML pages. So you can include the external CSS in all your HTML pages, and all your HTML pages will have the correct styling for all the pages. Now let's go back and let's look at Skilling's website. Okay, I click again on inspect, and here within the developer tools you have your styles for each of the element. Let's say for your topic over here, inspect, and then for every for that particular topic, what are the various styles? So your font size is 2.25 rem. Rem is another unit of sizing. Again, all the sizing options definitely you can get on the MDN website. Pixels we have used, rem, em, vw. What each of these means and when to use what is something which you should definitely check up on documentation. And really, it's quite a slight difficult to follow documentation, read documentation, and understand. That's why we need teachers, and that's why we need courses, and that's why we have come up to make it very easy for you to understand and use all the different technologies used in full stack web development. Okay, so now you can see all of these styles which are applicable to it. Some of the styles have been striked off. Why? Because so if I put an inline style, then it is actually going to override any other style which is applicable, right? So just you saw that form, everything within the form was supposed to be brown color, but for legend I put black color. So the brown color of form has been striked off, and the black color of legend is given a thumbs up and put on the web page. Okay, so all of these things are strike. But the point I want to make is that come to the bottom, like absolutely to the bottom. In fact, open any favorite web page of yours, open Google, open Apple, open any web page, favorite web page, and then for every element you will be able to see a box model. Now what is this box model? The box model says that your element is actually taking up only this much of space, and I really want you to focus on. Okay, let's reduce the size. Okay, I really want you to focus on this title as well. The title is only taking so much of space, but there is some sort of a padding which is given, below the title, and this padding is really important so that there you have some space. So just a few moments ago, I told you that, right, that what I did was a hack. I just included a new line break. That was just a hack. I should have put a padding. I should have put a padding after the login, section, so that I have the register section begin with a space. Okay, so that padding is something which you can add again using styling. You can simply for this particular div, for this div which I created over here, right, for register, I could add a padding in my style.css. So I would write div, and then I would mention padding, and let's say I can put a padding top, and here I would put, let's say, 50 pixels of padding. So now if I go back to my web page and I refresh, you will see a lot of padding over here. Now you would feel that we need a padding bottom as well. So I can put for all the places padding like this. So you have left, right, top, bottom, or for everything you can have it this way as well. So when I refresh, you will see that there is so much of padding available over here. So this is also another great thing which CSS provides us. It gives a lot of cushioning, and it gives a lot of good view of every element. So now you can add padding. Then we also saw that we can add border. Here there is no border, but yeah, you can also add a border beyond that. And then finally, you could even add some margin to your elements. Okay, so here also there is some slight margin which is added below the title. So this is the box model of CSS. You can use the box model so much. In fact, I want to really show you this particular link. If you go to this link, you'll be able to, really see. Okay, okay, Flash is not supported. Okay, if you do have a browser which with Flash supported, you'll be able to see a very good animation which this person has created, and it really helps to understand the box model. Um, and remember, the box model is for every HTML element. And I already told you we have different CSS sizing which is available. Pixels is something which we have already seen. Points, we have EM, which is it's just relative. So your letter M that has a particular size. Based on that letter M, you can increase or decrease. So it can be 1.5 EM, so which is 1.5 times the size of the letter M. Okay, you could have VW, which is the size of viewport. You could have percentage value. So it's going to be 100%, 80%, whatever you want. Okay, so definitely try use different sizing methods if you want to change the sizing of either the font or your entire block of div. Again, we saw text align center. Similar to text align center, we can also do margin auto. So text align center is going to align your text in within the box which the text is. If you use margin auto, it's actually going to align the entire container within the block which is just available. So margin auto and text align center both are used to make the element center. Now, if you get confused, when should I use margin auto or when should I use text align center? Or there are some display, values which you can use. So you already know that there are block level element and inline level element, right? What if you want to make an inline element look like a block element? For that, what would you do? You would do a display colon block, and that's going to make it a block level element. What if you use a div or a paragraph tag, which is actually a block element, but you want to make it look like an inline element? Okay, for that you would use display inline for that particular element. What if you want the best of both worlds? What if you want that the element should not take the entire size, and should only take the size which is required, but should also come into a new line. So that's the best of both the worlds. You can use display inline block, and you can use display none, which is going to hide your element. But to hide your element, you can also use visibility hidden. So now you might be thinking, when should I use display none? When should I use visibility hidden? When should I use text align center? And when should I use margin auto? So if you have an option between two things which are doing exactly the same thing, but you are confused what to do, then what do you have to do? Let me give you a tip. Just go to Google as usual, and type text align center versus margin auto, and you will be definitely given a lot of Stack Overflow links. You can open Stack Overflow, which is a very good forum for developers. Front end developers really take a lot of advantage from these forums, and here you will understand from the accepted answers what is the difference between two things. Or similarly, you can you can check for the other option which we had confusion for, which is display none or visibility hid versus visibility hidden. You can go to the Stack Overflow website, and you can see how many upvotes this question has gotten, and how many upvotes this accepted answer has gotten. And this is going to give you the correct difference. When should you use which one? Essentially, visibility hidden is not going to remove the element from your page. So let's say you try to hide this entire remote jobs remote jobs div, but the space would still be there. The space for this remote jobs would still be there. Okay, but if you do display none, then that entire space would be taken up, and this remaining stuff, the remaining content would come up. So you want to keep the space or you don't want to keep the space for that element, even if the visibility, even if the element is hidden. For that, you can choose one of the two options. So whenever you're confused between two pieces of code, which to use when, definitely go to stackoverflow.com, check up for the relevant, uh, things. Okay, so we have come a long way. The last few things which I wanted to share with you are is Z-index. Z-index is something which you would add. Let's say you have similar to this stack of cards. You have one div which is of background pink color, but you want to actually show another div with, let's say, the background of blue color on top of that. But let's say it's not coming on top of that; it is going behind that. So how do you increase the vertical level of that particular element? You will definitely need to use a Z-index. So a Z-index of 0 is the default. You can increase the Z-index, so you put Z-index of 1. This is going to take it to ahead, and then you can keep on increasing Z-index. So Z-index of 0 is the red color, Z-index of 1 is yellow color, Z-index of 2 is blue color, Z-index of 3 is pink color, and so on and so forth. Okay, this is how you use Z-index for CSS. And lastly, let's look at CSS float and clear, but we do not have a lot of time. So let me just go to the documentation to show you about CSS float and clear. So CSS float, MDN, that's something which we are going to see. Now, what float does is that if you have a lot of content in your page, you want to either float something to the right or to the left. So for example, this reset button you can see over here. So what MDN has done is that they have floated this reset button absolutely to the right. So they have done a float right for them. So you can have float right, float left, or float none if you do not want to float it anywhere. Okay. So your items which you have floated right would come absolutely at the right end. Your items which you have floated left would actually come absolutely at the left end. So for example, if I want to make this div come absolutely to the right, I will go to my style.css and put float right. Okay. Let me come back to my page and refresh. And you can see my div has come absolutely on the right. Okay. And similarly, I can do a float left to make it come on the left. And then let's say, there is all this information which is getting troubled because of this guy, floating right. So you don't want this thing to, trouble any other elements. So for that, you use a property called as clear. Okay. So I was just, sharing my screen, and I wanted to just show at the end what clear property does. It basically does not let the floating element affect the things which are, which are already present. So again, for clear left meaning do not allow floated elements to come to my left. Clear right meaning do not allow floated elements to come to my right. And clear none meaning clear both meaning that do not allow elements to come to either my right or my left. For example, you can see that this paragraph clears left, meaning that it did not allow these elements to come to its left. It actually came, down itself to not allow these elements to come to its left. Here you can see this paragraph clears right, meaning that it did not take up this space in which this black color element is there. It actually came to the next line, so that there is nothing to the right of this paragraph. And similarly, you can see this paragraph clears both. It did not take up the space in between to allow these elements to come to the right or to the left. It actually came in a new line so that it does not get troubled by these elements. So much of power you can understand in CSS, right? So once you understand this, remember the external style sheet is the best way to code. If you add anything inside in the internal style, that is going to override your external style, and whatever you add in your inline style, that's going to override your internal and external style both. So that's how the conflict resolution happens for you.